It's really odd that I ended up being a glassmaker because it was not intentional at all. My mother had just started a shop and gallery selling some antiques and some modern china and glass, and I said that I would help her for a little while. It was a natural thing that when somebody came into the shop selling glass one day to quip, "Oh, I wouldn't mind having a go at that." And the next thing I knew was that somebody had sent a letter saying, "I heard you wanted to do a glassblowing course." There's a fundamental difference between working as an artist and being a skilled craftsman, but I really do think of myself as an artist, and when I'm learning things all the time, I'm thinking about what I'm trying to get as my final result, and then how do I actually use the glassblowing skills to get there. The thing about this body of work is that I'd been thinking about it for a very long time. Actually, it dates back to the first course that I did in 1977, because the other student was doing some work that we called dribbling glass, and at the time we were probably a little bit critical of it, but I could see what fascinated her about this, and it's that fascination that I think collectors and people who buy glass always are drawn to. In order to create the final form, I've got to heat up the bubble in the middle, hot enough to manipulate it. But if I get it too hot, then the lattice will just collapse. And so it's a really exciting process, and I've designed it in such a way that each time I do it, I don't want to get better at doing it, because the whole idea about the process, it's controlled, uncontrolled, shall we say. And the whole idea is that if I get too good at it, then it'll just become slick and we'll lose the naivety. There's this balance between production, craft, and work of art. And I think ultimately, what one hopes is that the viewer will actually see a piece and it'll make their heart beat and their spirit will soar, and they'll actually feel the same way about it as I did when I made it.
Wasted space. It should have been you. It should have been you! So you found it.
What?
The key, Andrew.
How do you know my name? What's it for?
It's a cursed key.
What does it open?
A door like no other.
How?
It's obscure.
Where's the door?
You don't need to see the door. Go home, kid.
I don't have a home.
The door will not give you any answers.
I'm not looking for answers.
It will lead you nowhere.
Just tell me where the bloody door is! Please.
If you go through that door, your worst nightmare will come to life.
My life is already a nightmare.
You're just a kid.
Surrounded by cruel people.
Locked me in!
No, time took you.
What?
I haven't been able to work out how yet.
It's just a stupid dark room. Why are you so afraid of it? No way. No way. What did you do to me? Oh my God. What did you do?
I didn't do anything. You unlocked the door. When I was your age, I found the key, just like you did, in the woods. An old man dropped it. I didn't believe him when he told me it was cursed, evil. I had to see the room for myself, and I did. Every time you go in that room, time elapses faster in there than it does out here. And you can come out a completely different person. You can't do that.
Why not? This is insane. I have to go back.
Look, before I went through that door for the first time, I was you.
What do you mean, you were me? This is insane. I need to change back.
I've spent years over the last few months trying to change what happened.
I didn't want to change anything.
Yes, you did. We did. We wanted to erase it, fast forward it. And we did.
There must be an explanation for this.
Whatever we do, we end up back here, going through it over and over.
What about your family? Our family? Did you try to see them?
After I went through the door the second time, I was so old that I got scared. I went home. And I saw me, younger me. I mean you.
Me?
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. So I came back here.
Came here? Did you?
I thought it might be different this time. I guess I got that wrong.
What should we do now?
I'm tired.
What do you mean?
I've been waiting for you so long so that I can finish this. I think I'm ready.
Ready for what?
I can't do this anymore. Don't make the mistakes I made. What happened wasn't your fault.
I didn't mean to. He hurt me a lot.
Although we didn't mean to, the guilt battered me. I could feel my body dying inch by inch every minute. Forgive yourself. Break the cycle and maybe all this will stop. Do it for us. You waste of space. It should have been you. It should have been you!
Enough! Your mistakes are not his fault. He's all you have left now. Look at me. She's gone. You have to let her go. She's gone.
I'm sorry, son.
I'm so sorry.
It's a path out of the very severe problems we're facing now. It still hasn't really broken on public consciousness just how severe the situation is with climate change. There's an element of feeling so frightened that what we have to do is so huge. But what we can do here, what our message and makes us so important, I think, is that we can say, this is how we can do it. It's not that difficult. It's doable in our lifetimes. It's doable in the next 20 years if we can get the will to do it and remove the obstacles. Well, the Centre for Alternative Technology does many things. For most of its life, the centre of it has been a display centre which demonstrates different areas of sustainable living. So we have our own small-scale renewable energy systems, we have small-scale horticulture, going all the way from what you can do with a small urban back garden to actually an entire field. There's a lot of biological research that's happened here with composting and sewage management. Another strand of what CAT's done and displays to people has been to do with ecological building, green building techniques, alternative building techniques, all of these things, all in one place.
What we have to do is begin to dig into a positive future. Because at the moment, if you think about the ways contemporary society projects the future, it's ecological collapse and dystopia. We're not projecting any sort of positive future. And if we can't imagine a positive future, we won't create it. So what we want to do is to create little glimpses of a positive future here that people can come and experience and think, yeah, we can do this. And give people little tests and trials of things that they perhaps wouldn't normally have access to. So it's bringing that positive vision to life, I think.
This is our reservoir, and it really is where everything begins for CAT. It was the reservoir for the old slate quarry that was here before we were, and almost everything we do depends on this. In fact, locating the site where it is was because we found this site with a reservoir. As the water goes down the hill, we use it for loads of things. We use it for our turbines. We have 2 turbines. A lot of our horticulture. We have a fully fledged reed bed sewage system, so we use it for that, and also, of course, to run the Cliff Railway. But we really are just using it on its journey from the hillsides on its way down to the river. So it's a tiny bit of the water cycle. We're using it as efficiently as we possibly can. Well, we live in a little Walter Siegel house. It's an interesting construction because Walter Siegel was quite a visionary architect, and he resented, I think, the expertise and the exclusiveness of building and architecture. He wanted to find a way of building which was accessible to everybody. So a Siegel house is a timber frame house, but the timber frames are very simple in construction. There's no complicated carpentry or joinery going on. Everything's just bolted together. In the early days, for example, when we tried to start growing all our own food, the quality of the soil, as you'll see around here, is very poor. And on site, it was almost non-existent because it was an old slate quarry. So we needed lots of compost, and so we actually developed a human sewage composting system, which we still run today. And it's quite scientific because human sewage is a very risky thing to use. It's full of pathogens which are quite harmful to us. So we actually compost this stuff for about 2 to 2.5 years to make sure that it is absolutely free of any harmful pathogens. We actually measure the temperature of the composting bunkers in which this process is happening to make sure it gets hot enough to destroy any bugs that might be harmful to people. What we're looking at the moment at CAT, which I think is particularly important, is the role of biofuels. We're really concentrating on upgrading our whole site heating systems. And when we're doing that, we're going to be starting to run some very large biofuel boilers and starting to look at the way we heat the buildings and measuring the performances of all of those things. Now, this is an important point because most people take it for granted in the UK that when they want heat, they turn on the gas. And that, we can't go on doing that without fracking every last ounce of it out of the ground. And if we do that, we blow any chances of hitting any net zero targets. So we have to look at other ways of heating our buildings. It has big implications because if we do it successfully in the UK, then, for example, all the land we see around here, which is sheep farming, would have to be turned back to forestry. So that has a huge impact on the way we live in this country.
We have to begin thinking about reducing the amount of energy we need to live our lives, because if we look at the graph of energy per head, per human being, over time, for the past 150 years, it's just gone up and up and up and up and up and up, till we're using far more energy than we actually need. We're wasting loads of energy with stuff that doesn't last, with food that gets thrown away, with journeys that are unnecessary, heating badly insulated houses. We need a super energy efficient, energy lean Britain that can reduce by 50-60% the amount of energy it needs, but still give us everything we need by using it smartly. Once we've done that, we can begin to think about getting that 50% from the renewable energies, the clean energies that just hit Britain for free every year. What we tried to do was minimise the lifestyle impacts to make it as easy and familiar as possible.
Well, I would say our main goal is to be part of a whole array of organisations and individuals who are trying to move us now to a post-carbon society and to do it as quickly as possible. Because we are a few minutes from midnight and we really need to do a lot of decarbonisation very fast. Our message, with our years of experience, is that it is doable. That is that we have all the technology now. What we need is the will to change. I am actually optimistic in the long term. In the short term, it's all a bit bleak at the moment, particularly with our current administration. But they won't be there forever. And the overall way things are developing is, I think, very positive in that the way people are thinking is changing. So hang on in there is what I say. It'll come round.
I'm not the person they think I am. They remember me as who I used to be back then.
Oh, darling, who was that? Are congratulations in order?
Even if there was someone, I wouldn't tell you who.
Oh, come on. You know you would.
Let me catch you up. Mona doesn't like to talk about herself, and Rosie likes to be more involved. Mona, I see that you still have all those Polaroids from back then. Mm-hmm. Send me a copy, will you?
Grade 8. We collectively gifted her the cheapest Polaroid camera that we could find. Slowly it became her escape from awkward gatherings like these. Send me a copy too. Now that you have to share.
We need some music. Speakers?
Could you pass me film? First row on the right.
When did you start making dresses again?
3 months ago. Why are you asking such a question?
Okay, that's enough. You never tell her what's going on, and you keep forcing her. I think it's time that things changed a little bit.
What changed between us? I used to be the first one to know.
No one needs to share everything. Not unless there's something worth sharing.
Back then, she shared everything with me. Didn't have to be worthwhile.
Things change. You and I, we've changed. Change is constant. These days, I know I've been a little in my head and secretive. But I like my privacy. This shouldn't be a problem. I just don't like to talk about myself until there's a need.
And I thought, now that we are all in the same city, I thought things would be like before. But I understand what you mean.
I'm not seeing anyone at the moment. When there's something to share, you guys will be the first to know.
More often than not, when people move away, you lose touch. They become strangers with familiar faces.
See? Passive aggression doesn't help.
She still treats us like kids. Forgets we can sort things out ourselves.
She's the mum in our group. It's mostly okay, but neither of us are ever gonna tell her otherwise.
At times, I genuinely think she takes pleasure in saying, "I told you so." Speaking of sharing...
Wasn't she just irritated? Now she's fine.
This is one of the things that I always liked about her.
Her optimistic nature.
Yeah. How does she do that? Look at her.
Based on how she was. Should we take some credit for that?
No, she's always been like this.
Mum and I are finally taking that mother-daughter trip to Paris.
After so many years.
Wait, what? You mean the trip that you guys have been planning since we left school?
I'm sending you a list of things you must do in Paris.
Mum finally got her passport renewed, and I just cannot wait to eat and shop. These days, every other person wants to travel, be it an overnight trip or a month-long adventure. This one has been making solo trips for as long as I can remember. And that one over there, she can barely survive car rides into work, but tries to hide it.
Traveling can be fun, but I don't know how people do it alone. To me, it's boring.
Solitude and being alone are different things. People hate feeling lonely, but we sure as hell enjoy it from time to time.
If that's the case, then I bet she's been craving one of her solo trips.
Remember whenever we were 14, and she convinced her parents to let her go alone to her aunt's place in Positano?
I actually do. How did she do that again?
Oh, come on. That wasn't that big of a deal. It was a short plane ride. Yeah?
The dairy farming industry is the single largest agricultural sector in the UK, valued at £3.8 billion. Producing 13.5 billion litres of milk annually, dairy companies last year turned over an excess of 500 million. In 1950, there were over 200,000 dairy farms in England. Today, there are just 9,446 left. It seems one of the UK's proudest and most profitable agricultural sectors is in sharp decline. We decided to go to a local farm in Surrey that has dubbed itself the Cow Palace, a farm where the cows milk themselves, to meet head farmer Mike and his herdsman Tony.
Look at the milk. Okay, we're going, see how the modern dairy farm works. So we're through to the milking robots here. So we've got two machines. It's a fully automatic system, so the cows come and milk themselves when they want to be milked. It runs 24 hours of the day. We're averaging three milkings per cow per day over the whole herd, and that allows for sort of 150 to 100 milkings per machine per day. So that, you're getting between sort of 1,000 and 1,500 litres per machine per day.
It costs Mike 30 pence a litre to produce his milk. Mike then sells it on to Arla, a distribution company, for 31 pence a litre, the highest price he's received for 2 years.
Hey, Ada. So this is our, what we almost call it a cow palace. We were lucky enough, our landlords, we wanted to give the cows lots of extra space, plenty of stalls that they can lie in, so they're not bullied by other cows. They've always got space to move around and feel comfortable. It's a fairly busy day, feeding the cows, cleaning them out, putting new bedding in, looking after all the young stock, clean the sheds out. We've got to bring all the food to them. We've got to take all the slurry and the waste material out the shed. Significant costs with that. But
and I guess time as well.
and time, I say in the summertime we get a little bit more time to spend doing other jobs on the farm. One of the most regular questions we get is why we take the baby calves away from the cow at 4 days old. But we're producing milk for human consumption, and after 4 days the cow's milk is ready for that.
Go in and give her a little hand and it should come out.
Oh yeah, my daughter Zoe now, she's at agriculture college.
I know, Plumpton.
She's mad keen on the cows. whether she'll come back to the business in a few years, I don't know. Like to think she will. We're sort of we're half planning for her to come back, but being a young lady, she might meet somebody and go off and farm somewhere else, go off and do something completely different. I don't know, but I think at the moment she's very keen on it all, so which is good. Gives me hope for the future. But keep building the business for hopefully for make it sort of viable for her to take on and. I think Tony comes down about 9-10 o'clock. He walks his dog. He said he comes down, has a quick look at them, and
He's been here. You're saying he's been here for 17 years.
Yeah, 2000 he started here, so he worked for the previous owner of the farm. So yeah, when I took the business on, I took Tony on with it.
The thing with robots,
Yeah.
the cows choose what to do. If they want to stay out here, they can stay out here. If they want to go in the shed, they can go in the shed.
Wow.
That's the whole thing about it.
But it's changed a lot since, when Tony was here, they used to milk 55 cows. We're now up to sort of 130, going to be pushing 140, so you've seen a lot of big changes. You have to ask him whether the changes for the better or not, I don't know, but yeah.
The dairy buys its milk off farmers at 30 pence a litre. A litre of milk in a high street supermarket currently costs around 95 pence, just over triple the cost paid to Mike. Whilst we were away, Mike received a text from the company he sells his milk to. I wanted to ask you actually about the text that you got just after.
Oh, about the milk price?
Yeah. What do they have to say?
Well, it's a text just notifying us that our milk price was dropping for April, so it's down. It's going to be about half a p for us, maybe a little bit more. I haven't worked it out yet, but it's a little bit what's going on in Europe. I think in Germany there's a bit of an oversupply of milk, and that's affecting the markets for cheese and butter and things like that. But the farmers are the shareholders. As people like Muller and some of the other dairy companies, they've got shareholders. They want their 5-10% return on investment every year, and it's so to get that they either get it from the milk buyers or the milk sellers, and it's usually the milk sellers. So the poor farmer, So our milk check coming in next month will be £300 less than maybe I was expecting, which is it's not a dramatic amount, but every little it all adds up. Just makes you think again. So we're living in fairly volatile times, and learn to expect the unexpected sometimes.
I wish I could relive the good memories again. I loved her. I loved how, when we were together, nothing else mattered. How we could go from lovingly listing all the things we adored about each other to arguing about crunchy or smooth peanut butter. I don't want to get over that.
You should come. If anything, the distraction would be good for you.
so happy. Maybe we just didn't keep the bad ones.
So yeah, like if you got Alien, like classic, you've seen it, right? Yeah, amazing piece of cinema. But Aliens is like, it's just like Vietnam in space. And Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection are just filth. It's just pure nasty filth. I don't care. No one cares about Alien 3 or 4. It shouldn't exist.
What was that? She was my best friend. I kind of hope that she's hurting as much as I am. I loathe the idea of her being with somebody else making her happy and them doing the things that we used to do together. There's so many things that I wish I knew. I don't exactly know what I want or what's right. I don't think there is a right or a wrong, but I just need to know how this story ends.
So crossing the start finish line, going down and pushing turn 1 at 145 miles an hour.
You will be rolling the car into the corner, trail braking through. You will notice between
The left and the right, he doesn't give any significant power, he just keeps...
momentum through the corner.
And then as the car goes into the crest on the exit of the right, that's when you realise the power.
You can see him following the Bentley down turn 3 now.
Very hard breath until you put the meter board.
The G Academy is an online competition. In Europe, you have 200,000 gamers trying to come from virtual to reality.
My involvement began back in 2008 when two guys went to the pub and dreamt up this crazy concept about turning gamers into real racing drivers, and I was asked to get on board as one of the instructors. At the time I was a little bit sceptical about how realistic this dream of theirs was, but I went with it nonetheless. We've now produced some of the finest racing drivers in the world.
I was 5th overall in France, and I had to be forced to qualify for the final. I spent the whole night on the game trying to improve my time. It was really hard mentally because when you're playing such a long time, you have to stay focused. It was really the hardest part of the competition for me.
Motorsport nowadays is very much the sport of the very wealthy. Probably 99% of the world's population could simply not afford to take part in top-level motorsport. So this programme is really opening many doors for young drivers who aspire to be racing drivers but haven't got the financial resource to maybe do it for themselves.
You have to be a complete guy, mentally and physically, and it's really important to become a professional race car driver.
What you're seeing on the screen is as realistic as it gets.
The simulator here in the Nismo lab is a hugely important training tool for the guys in their driver development program. They can learn a circuit, braking points, gears, etc. So when they get to the circuit and get into the real car, they can hit the ground running.
The only reason that sims exist is because it's cheaper than doing it in real life. Go back, say, 10, 20 years, it was go-karting, then you'd work your way up to, say, a tin top. But it's so expensive to do that now that people just find different ways of doing it, and simulations is a perfect way. That's why the F1 racers use it. You can kind of develop your own driving style with your simulation and not worry about any of the costs. For me, I'm quite an aggressive driver. It'd be £80,000 to do it for a year season in Clio, and if I damaged, say, even the radiator, it's £5,000 to repair it. In this, I can bounce off the walls as long as you like. It doesn't make a difference.
Simulators are so accurate now that you could almost fool people to thinking that they were watching some real racing. But will simulator racing ever take off to the same degree as traditional motorsport? I don't think so.
You start to feel the limits because you don't really feel the brake and the force when you're driving. And I think the biggest difference is the management of the mechanic of the car. To be able to manage the tires, the gearbox, the engine is something very important in racing.
The sensation you get from the simulators in here is, again, just as a taster. It's more for enjoyment, but it's never going to be the same as a real-life racing car. The G-force you feel in something like that is tremendous. It is something that you will never experience any other way. We've got lots of different variation in all the cars. We've got all different types of tracks to race on, and depending on your skill level, we can kind of change the setup to suit you. It'll be very low traction control, very low ABS, and minimal stability control. Try and give you a taster of what it's really about. A very small percentage of people that will go on to actually be competitive racing drivers, but it's got people involved in racing. A lot of the time it was, especially in the UK, it was when you buy a car, you kind of try and race it around the streets, and that's not the safe thing to do. With the introduction of simulation and more kind of realistic racing games, it gets you to appreciate what the racers actually do and how they modify their cars for a certain racetrack, and that's really kind of kicked off.
Okay, so we're going to have a look at a lap from last year's race at Paul Ricard, so you don't really need to figure an awful lot out for yourself. So crossing the start-finish line at Paul Ricard, approaching turn 1 at 145 miles an hour. Now I'm going to pause it at the braking point. So what you have on the right-hand side, the curbing changes colour. It goes from blue to the red and white stripes. Chio brakes at the very end of this curb into turn 1. Okay, and it's a real big braking zone, so real hard braking. He'll be rolling the car into the corner, trail braking through, and you'll notice between the left and the right, he doesn't give any significant power. He just keeps the momentum through the corner, and then as the car goes over the crest on the exit of the right, that's when he reapplies the power.
National circuit here at Silverstone. They are off and running.
Great outbreaking manoeuvre, he's overcooked it and he's all over the ground. He nearly spins, he's saying Daglic, tank slapper on and escape road.
That was a brilliant move. Side by side.
Would you go quicker if you braked 5 metres earlier and rolled a little bit more speed over the apex? Maybe. But diff drivers drive differently, so it's maybe too early to say. It was all quite frantic in that braking zone. So I don't think there's any point at this stage looking at the telemetry. I think we'll go and do our next 10-lap run pretty much straight away. And then we'll have a look at how you're getting on relative to the others, and we can see in graph format if what I'm saying is correct or not. Right, so let's go and do another 10. So that basically completes our training programme for today, and I've got to say I am hugely impressed. It's been quite a few months since he's been in a car, and I was expecting to find, maybe not quite dialed in mentally or physically or technically, but I couldn't have asked for any more from today, and it really gives me a lot of confidence going to Paul Ricard next weekend when you're going to get into the GT3 car, so fantastic job today.
Thanks.
And let's hope we have a good Ricard next weekend.
Oh yeah.
With someone like Roman, we get given a driver that's never driven
at a high level at all, never driven competitively, really. And that gives me a really, really interesting case. So when I compare it to drivers that I've worked with before, they have lots of pre-existing ideas and ideologies around driving, lots of belief systems in place already. With someone like Roman, it's probably slightly easier, because they haven't got a huge amount in place. So the driver coach this morning used the idea of them being a bit more malleable. I see them in exactly the same way. So almost we're starting from zero. They have nothing in place at all, and we can put into his mind the information that we know to be the right stuff for performance or high level performance. As a psychologist, I look at sport and saying, okay, we've got a physical machine that we can train, but also a mental machine that we can train in exactly the same way. In our model, we have a part of the brain we call the computer, and you program the computer full of skills that will then act automatically for you. So to start with, they're quite conscious. The more you do, and the more automatic they become. What does that computer do? What's its main function?
It's set to make you do things without thinking.
Perfect. Automatic. That's both in terms of skills, learning to drive, typing, walking, blinking, or beliefs. And those beliefs, again, can be positive, helpful, or unhelpful. Give me an example of, in racing, an unhelpful belief.
Unhelpful? You have to be the fastest every time.
Right, perfect, great example. Who's put that information into your computer, chimp or human?
Chimp.
I was dabbing on the brake to try and slow it down. The wheels locked up. It's like being on a roller coaster without having a harness on. That split second from being in control to not having anything at all, it throws you off completely.
A guy spawned in front of me. Difficult thing to accept that you can hurt people and hurt yourself.
You're playing a game. The easy thing to do is to press the reset button.
People want to go and hear, smell, and enjoy motorsport on a traditional circuit because ultimately they want to see people crash. It's maybe a sad reflection on society, but people want to see people crash, and that's why people watch motorsport.
There was once peace in our kingdom, until the day demons fell from the sky. We had never seen such monsters before. Red faces, walking through fire. They carried weapons beyond understanding. This was a threat we could not ignore. Our home, our people had to be protected. Not once did our king hesitate. Every man was called to arms. The time to fight has come. Hold your ground until the last man. For this is our last stand.
Leon!
Arthur. The demons from the sky.
Don't talk, just rest.
We failed our people.
Your father led us to our death. He was a fool, yes, but we still have time. We just need to... promise I will end this for all of us. Face me, demon!
Ishnoka, Ishnolasi, Amo Shelagarati, Wansa, Mila.
No more.
You can speak?
My people tried to speak. Your people attacked. Never listened. We must stop. Peace. Yes. Peace.